Most people believe manipulation is obvious. They imagine lies, pressure, persuasion, someone trying to convince them of something visible, something direct. But the most effective manipulation tactic in the world works in a completely different way. It doesn't push you. It doesn't argue with you. It doesn't even try to change your mind. Instead, it changes the environment around your mind, quietly, slowly, until your decisions begin shifting on their own. And the strange part is, most people never realize it's happening. Because the tactic itself is almost invisible. It's called attention shaping. Not forcing behavior, not controlling actions, just influencing what someone notices and what they don't. Human attention is limited. Your brain can only focus on a small number of things at any moment. Everything else disappears into the background. This is where silent manipulation begins. Because whoever controls attention controls perception, and whoever controls perception quietly influences decisions. Look closely at how information appears in your life. What shows up first? What repeats itself? What seems important? What feels urgent? What suddenly becomes a topic everyone is talking about? Most people think these patterns happen naturally, but patterns rarely happen by accident. They are usually designed, sometimes by systems, sometimes by organizations, sometimes by individuals who understand how attention works. Here's the part people rarely notice. You don't need to convince someone of something. You only need to make sure they see certain things more often than others. The brain starts doing the rest automatically. Repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates comfort, and comfort slowly builds belief. This is why the most powerful manipulation tactic isn't argument. It's exposure. If someone sees an idea once, they question it. If they see it 10 times, they start considering it. If they see it 100 times, it begins to feel normal. But silent manipulation goes deeper than repetition. It also works through omission. Not showing certain information, not highlighting certain facts, not making certain perspectives visible. Because what people don't see feels like it doesn't exist. And when something doesn't exist in your awareness, it can't influence your thinking. This creates a controlled perception of reality, not by adding false information, but by limiting the full picture. This tactic has been used long before the internet existed. In media, in politics, in advertising, in social groups, in workplaces, anywhere influence matters. But modern systems have made it far more precise, because now attention can be measured, tracked, analyzed, and predicted. Every time someone pauses on a piece of content, that moment reveals something about their curiosity. Every time someone ignores something, that also reveals something. Over time, patterns become clear. And once patterns are clear, shaping attention becomes easier. Now think about how often you encounter information online. Feeds, notifications, recommended content, headlines, comments, trending topics. None of these are random. They are selected, filtered, positioned, ordered in a specific way. Most people believe they are exploring information freely, but in reality, they are navigating a curated environment, and environments shape behavior without people noticing. Imagine walking into a room where certain conversations are louder than others. Certain people are easier to notice. Certain ideas appear more frequently. Eventually, your perception of the room changes. You begin to think those ideas are more common than they actually are. This is known as perception weighting. Not changing reality, just changing what feels dominant. Silent manipulation works exactly like that. It doesn't fight your beliefs. It simply surrounds you with signals that slowly influence them. And because the process feels natural, it's rarely questioned. But there's another layer most people never consider: timing. Information delivered at the right moment becomes far more powerful when someone feels uncertain, when someone is tired, when someone is frustrated, when someone is looking for answers. That's when influence becomes easier. Not because people are weak, but because the brain looks for shortcuts during those moments. A suggestion appearing at the right time can feel like clarity, even if it was strategically placed. Now combine timing with repetition, and combine repetition with controlled exposure. What you get is a system that can guide perception without forcing anything. And that's why it's so difficult to detect. Because technically, no one forced you to think anything. No one told you what to believe. You simply saw certain signals more often. Over time, those signals became familiar, then trusted, then normal. This tactic also works through something called social proof. Humans naturally observe what others appear to be doing, what people like, what people agree with, what people support. But what most people forget is that visibility can be engineered. When certain opinions appear more visible, they seem more popular. When something seems popular, people become more open to it. Not because they were convinced logically, but because humans instinctively align with what feels accepted. This is another form of quiet influence. Now imagine how many systems understand this principle. Platforms, marketing teams, political strategists, content creators, organizations trying to guide public perception, even individuals in social environments. Once someone understands how attention works, they can influence situations without direct confrontation. This is why the tactic is silent. No argument, no debate, no obvious pressure, just controlled visibility. But here's where things become more interesting, because the brain begins adapting to the environment it experiences repeatedly. Over time, people develop what feels like independent opinions. But those opinions were often shaped by the information landscape surrounding them. Not forced, just guided, subtly, repeatedly, until it feels natural. This doesn't mean every belief you hold is manipulated, but it does mean your environment plays a bigger role than most people realize. And environments are rarely neutral. They are designed, curated, influenced, structured in ways that guide behavior. Even physical spaces do this. Stores place certain products at eye level. Cities guide movement through design. Lighting affects mood. Sound affects attention. Digital environments operate using the same psychological principles, just at a larger scale, and with more data, which makes silent manipulation more precise than ever before. But the most powerful part of this tactic isn't control, it's invisibility. Because people only resist influence when they recognize it. If something feels like their own idea, they protect it, defend it, sometimes even argue for it, without realizing where it came from. And that's why silent manipulation works so well. It hides behind normal behavior, behind habits, behind routine interactions, behind things people stop questioning. But every once in a while, someone notices the pattern. They realize certain ideas appear again and again. Certain narratives feel amplified. Certain perspectives seem strangely absent. And that moment creates awareness. Not panic, not fear, just awareness. Because once someone understands how attention shaping works, they start observing information differently. They pause before accepting what feels obvious. They look at what's missing, not just what's present. And that simple shift changes everything, because manipulation loses power the moment it becomes visible. The truth is, silent manipulation has always existed, But modern systems have made it more refined, more scalable, more personalized, which means influence is no longer loud, it's precise. And quiet systems often have the greatest impact. Most people will never think about this. They'll continue moving through information environments the same way. But some viewers start noticing small signals. Patterns in what appears. Patterns in what spreads. Patterns in what stays visible. And once you start seeing those patterns, it becomes impossible to ignore how influence actually works. Not through force, not through persuasion, but through something much simpler. Controlling what enters your attention. And once attention is shaped, decisions quietly follow.